Welcome to this session. It's been a long time since I've done one. And no, I'm still in dialysis, although my health has obviously improved so much. For example, yesterday I was out working out against a wall really intensely for 45 minutes. The day before I did it for an hour and a quarter and wasn't tired afterwards. So there's been a huge improvement, and I suspect eventually I'll walk away. Each time the results say I haven't made it yet, and each time the results are show me the direction to improve. But this isn't about that. Yesterday, Elly, who has been doing some walking on hills here, she loves it, noticed a new problem in her right leg. It was in her knee. There was pain there. And this reminds me about the grief that we reported much earlier with the agony she had with her leg and so on. I could feel that the cap was moving, and underneath the cap it seemed to me there was a chip of bone that had gotten into the knee joint. You know, that's not supposed to happen. We decided the right thing to do was to schedule a zap, and I created the recipe for it using the stuff I had in my spreadsheet. What is very interesting is what happened then, because we went ahead and did it. Perhaps you remember in a previous session that I mentioned that when it occurred to me to ask whether the recorded frequencies were still valid, I found many of them were not. This time, after getting started, we asked that question routinely and found that for perhaps 8 out of 10 of the ones for zappables, like the bacteria, viruses, and so on, the frequencies were in fact not valid. And in fact, Elly was able to determine what the correct ones were. Now, you may question her ability to do that, and you have a right to question that, but the fact is that's the only method I ever used to determine what they were, was to ask. And it's interesting that yesterday she did the asking. So if you've been saying, well, this guy is some kind of genius or monster, he can ask and get answers and nobody else in the world can, well, there's one other person who can. My wife. Maybe I'm not the only one. Is that of some help to you? In any case, I believe we have arrested the problems with the knee, and we will complete that zap in a few days when it's safe to do it. One thing we've realized is that because of the crawlouts that are produced when one does something like that, it's very important to limit how much one does. If you do too much, the kidneys are totally overwhelmed. You're in real trouble then. It's best to do it in small doses. And this is especially true when you're testing for every frequency and not allowing sloppy ones to get by that actually just take up time.
Hello.
There's one interesting comment I'd like to make here, and that is the ability to ask the question, are these frequencies valid, presupposes that I am able to ask the question. It depends on your viewpoint about the world. If you really understand that the world is made out of things that are independent of you, things who scientifically can be measured, And once they're there, they are there, you could never ask this question. You would see the frequency as another thing. On the other hand, if you can see that there's a mystical side to the situation, one which allows for things to be, and the most important things to be, somehow behind or not visible in 3 dimensions, then asking that question is a very simple one. It might be worth asking yourself if you could ask it. Because being a materialist probably will stop you from healing at some point if you are unwilling to realize that there is a mystical side to your health. I suspect that's a good message, and I'll leave you with it. Join me again. Thanks for being with me.